I was talking to a table, and a young lady, in her mid-50s, came walking up, and she was clutching something in her arms, and she said, she waited politely until I got done talking to people at the table. I turned around and said, "How can I help you?" And she said, "Well, someone told me that if I brought something military related, that you would put it up, you would display it in this restaurant. Is that true?" And I said, "Of course it is." I said, what do you have there?" And she hands it to me. And of course, me not ever holding it before, I didn't know what it was until I opened it, and I saw that it, first thing I see is her son's name, Brandon, and it was a Gold Star Mother's flag. And whew, man, I just kind of stood there on the floor, and I told her, I said, "Ma'am," I said, "if you don't like any of these walls," I said, "we'll add on to this building for this flag."
Hello, welcome to another episode of the Mighty Oaks Show. Glad to have you with us today, and looking forward to a fantastic conversation, and really excited about what we're going to talk about today. But before we get there, if you are watching on YouTube, please take the time to subscribe to the channel. Go ahead and hit the notification bell. If you'd like to, leave a comment. Share this content out. We'd love to interact with you that way. And I say this often, but there's so much content on our channel that can be used for you, either personally to find help and encouragement in your own life, or, and a lot of people use it this way, as a resource to send to others. I was just asked this week, what can I do for someone who needs help but is unwilling to get help? What can I do, and what are some of the things that I can maybe send to them? And I always recommend sending a link to several of the videos that we have on our channel. We have the Mighty Oaks Show, but we also have testimonial videos and a lot of other helps. So go ahead and check that out. If you are listening over at Mojo50, thank you for listening. Maybe you're listening to the podcast. Thank you for doing that. Take some time after the show to go over to YouTube, and again, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell, and let us know you're there. We'd love to connect with you there. Today, I have the opportunity to speak with fellow Marine veteran Chris Sadler. Chris is coming to us all the way from Conroe, Texas, which isn't as far away as it sounds, but it sounds really far away, right outside of Houston there. And Chris served the United States Marine Corps, has done a number of things in the security field, in the contracting field, in law enforcement, and most recently opened a restaurant, and I guess you call it a restaurant, the Honor Cafe. Food is served there, but it's much more than a restaurant, and I wanted to talk about that, just what it is to serve those who have served, to be really an encouragement and a help to so many who have served, to put a light on veterans, and that's awesome. But also as veterans, starting businesses and finding ways to contribute. And Chris, really appreciate it. Thanks for joining us and having the opportunity to talk with us today.
Happy to be here with you. Thank you for inviting me. Actually, it's a big honor for me. Thank you.
No, it's an honor to have you on. I told you I was just in town and didn't get a chance to stop by, but I'll be back in a couple of weeks. So
yeah, you messed up.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that. You messed up.
Well, I'm going to try to make it right when I get back. So we'll see what we can do.
Right.
Hey, let's, before we get to the work you're doing now, let's just go back. Talk about growing up a little bit and how you ended up in the military. Obviously, even now you have a huge heart for those who have served. Where did that come from? And how did you kind of get from, being a kid to where you are right now? Well,
I guess that heart for service started with being raised by a single mother, and seeing a lady, which I have a saying that every warrior comes from a woman, and that's why as warriors we should have the utmost respect for women and treat them in a manner in which they're deserving. But I was raised by a single mom, and I saw that struggle and saw the sacrifice that she made for us. And obviously a great Christian woman that taught me Christian values, and through a lot of surrogate, fathers, either from the church or from my cousins or my uncles, learned what I kind of feel like today, what it meant to be a man to me. And my real father, who I was estranged from until my mid-30s, was also a Marine. And I knew that already. I have two cousins that were Marines, one grandfather that was a Marine, one grandfather that was in the Army. So, and all that family had come out and joined the police departments, either municipally or federally. So I was, my whole family had come from law enforcement, military. Yeah. So tell you the truth, I just don't think we're smart enough to do anything other than service. And it's a little bit of, it's in the DNA, I guess. And so, of course, coming out of school, I knew already that I wanted to join the Marine Corps. And there was a great argument between me and my grandfather, who was in the Army, who didn't want me to join the Marine Corps. He wanted me to do something different. And he kind of gave me the breathing fire doesn't look good on a resume, thing that, if you get, when you get out, I want you to be able to do something. And I think it came down to a hard statement where I got up from the table and said something like, sometimes you got to be more than all you can be. You got to be the best. And I'm going to be a Marine. And,
I'm sure he appreciated that. It was probably warmed his heart.
Actually, he passed away this last Veterans Day. Wow. And it may have been a week before that he actually forgave me for that statement. So, God did a mighty work in his life that I would have bet money that wouldn't have happened. Guy who saw the Korean War, who was a municipal police officer for 44 years, and who was a pretty hard guy to deal with on basis that I had time to be close to him. And I would have told in fact, I told people, I said, he's not going to have that conversion before he passes. And let me tell you, God will surprise you just like he does every day of our lives. But and we miss it. But he surprised me. And my grandfather, he made that change. He came to the restaurant for the first time a week before he passed. Came up here, and after about 3 or 4 insults, actually told me. Firstly out of his mouth, he wanted to walk around and wanted me to show him the place. He was using a walker. He was on hospice at that time. And he told me, he's like, only a moron would open a restaurant in the middle of this stuff, this pandemic. And I was like, yeah. And, a couple more things flew out. And then he stood there in the middle of the foyer and he said, this place is amazing. And I said, yeah, I agree with you. It's pretty amazing. That's awesome. And, and I thank God every day that I get to be a part of this place, because really that's what it comes down to is it's a mission. It's another mission, it's a godly mission, and I'm proud to be chosen as a steward of this mission. But
that's pretty incredible. I as you were talking, one of the things we teach at the Mighty Oaks programs, in our programs, we call it our legacy program, as you know, but we talk about legacy and what that means and what that looks like. And one of the things that I've talked to hundreds of men probably about is that maybe you don't have your own kids that you can influence. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're not married, or you are married but you don't have children. But there are people in your life that you can influence, and you don't know where that influence is going to take them. And as I was listening to you talk about the early days of having just those, I would use the word mentor, use the word surrogate fathers, those men in your life that really encouraged you, from grandfathers and other relatives to just men in your life. How important was that to get you to the place where now you look around and go, who can I help? Who can I serve? What kind of a legacy can I leave?
I think it's first of all, I think it's massively important to the type of man that I am today. I think that it, obviously whatever that situation is, one of my mentors, General Stephen Hummer, Marine Corps General. Yeah. One of the first times I was able to, I was actually in a car and I was driving him somewhere for a board meeting. We were talking, and he was actually talking to me and telling me things. He was talking about when he would punish Marines, when he would, do NJP and this type of thing. And he was saying that, and this is when he was at a company level, and he was saying that he would take their service jacket. He'd go all the way back to the recruiting notes, and he'd see if they were came from a fatherless family, if they were a foster kid, and he would generate a discipline that came from all the way back to where have people gone wrong with this guy, and how can I help him? He didn't want to just punish the Marine. He wanted to put together a disciplined program that would bring success out of the situation. And that was massive for me to hear, because, well, first of all, as a young Marine who got punished quite a bit, I didn't, and I told him this. I said, I really don't feel like, I said, maybe you thought of it that way, but I don't know that some of the guys in charge of me thought of it that way. Right. I said, but just that's why they call them mentors. That taught me a lot about things, and I still use that, to this day here in whatever business I'm operating. I use that type of situation when we have a failure, and instead of me screaming and yelling and losing my mind over the situation, coming down on people, I'm like, I'll turn around and say, let's do a root cause analysis. You do it. You figure out the failure, and then you come back to me with a plan of how this is never going to happen to us again. And we'll bring a victory out of the jaws of defeat there, and that comes from that mentorship. So you ask me, is it important? It's huge, because it made me the man I am today. Each of those guys, that maybe I didn't appreciate, even maybe one of my mom's boyfriends at the time or whatever that came in, each of those men that God brought through my life brought some type of benefit. And to me, as long as you're learning, if you have the ability to learn, then it's not truly a loss. I mean, there may be the feeling of loss, or there may be some real loss, but if you can come out of it with some type of learning out of a situation, then you can come out with a win.
Yeah, that's awesome. Man, there's so much there. It's great. The mentorship piece is so important, and I think we miss it when we're young, being mentored or being helped, whether it's from a father or other people in our lives. But then I think as middle-aged or older men, we sometimes forget the responsibility that we have to then pay it forward for them, to reach back and say, who can I mentor, who can I help, and how can I be an encouragement to them? There's really nothing greater in life than to invest in someone who will carry on after you're gone.
Sure.
Yeah.
I had the ability here in the restaurant. We had a bunch of boys that came in, a bunch of college-bound baseball players came in, and they were eating in the restaurant. And I had a little talk with them that got pretty serious in a hurry. And it's exactly what you're talking about, that mentor situation. I remember when I was getting married, there was an older Marine that was actually a master sergeant that I knew outside of work, and he had the courage to sit down with me and tell me, as a young Marine who he had deployed with, and knew that I was a little wild when it went to the other side of the pond there. He's like, this is going to be your wife. He said, and this is going to be the mouth that kisses your children. And these are, there's things that you do and don't do with a wife, and there's things you ask and there's things you don't ask. And let me tell you, I've used that advice in my marriage, and I've been married for 25 years now. Ultimately, the reason I left the Marine Corps was for my wife. And not because she asked me to, but because she said, if I didn't want to leave the Marine Corps, we probably weren't going to make it. And I had to make a really hard decision. Yeah. And 25 years later, I feel like I made the correct decision. And she's an incredible woman. But that advice he gave me caused me to not make mistakes that I saw other Marines make. So that mentor piece, like you said, it's massive. But back to these boys being here in the restaurant, these baseball players, we sat there talking, and somehow this child trafficking situation that's going on in the United States came up at the table. And I said, how do you guys feel about being part of the problem? And they, all of a sudden, all the smiles left the table. And I said, in any type of business, I said, there's a supply, and there's a distribution group. I said, and there's a demand. I said, and if you guys have ever watched pornography, I said, you're part of that demand. I said, if you don't want that to happen, if you feel bad about the way that has happened, I said, take yourself out of that supply chain. I said, because that's the way you break a business, right? You get rid of the production, you get rid of the distribution, you get rid of the demand. One of those things, you take any of those out and the business fails. And I said, if we want to get serious about this in America, about this, this human trafficking, this child trafficking situation, which, in my law enforcement experience, and even today with law enforcement officers that are here in the restaurant that we do business with, that leads to some type of sex trade is where that stuff's tied to. And I told him, I said, you want to fix that? I said, take a piece out of there. I said, take yourself out of the equation. But I think that, the looks on their face, I think they were thinking in a different way than they were thinking before I stepped up and talked to them. That is mentorship. When someone can talk to a young man and change his mind, or at least get him thinking in a different direction, you better believe that's mentorship, because, there's only two things that move a young man: God and mentorship. Yeah.
Wow. Incredible. Man, God and mentorship, and sometimes it's the mentor that leads to God, I think, as well.
Absolutely.
Were you were raised in a Christian home, or certainly around Christian people? Can you talk about your journey of faith a little bit, when you came to make that relationship with God personal to you, and how that's kind of influenced your life?
I think that my story isn't unlike a lot of people's story who were raised in church. And I actually, I fell away from the church as a young man. I actually developed a plan in my mind. I looked at these old people in the church, which now I am one of those old people. I'm 48 years old this year, and going to be 49 in September. So I'm exactly at the old people that I was looking at. But I said, I'm going to step away and I'm going to have this fun and do what I want to do. And then when I get old, I'm going to come back and sit where I need to sit in the church. I'm going to pay my tithe. I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to do the things that I know are right, but I don't want to miss out on any of this fun. And I exactly did that. And I guess I was a municipal police officer. I got out of the Marine Corps. I was in law enforcement, and I knew enough to have my family in church, because I knew that those parables, those stories are the building blocks of a solid moral compass for a child. So I was smart enough to have my kids in church, but I was there. I wore my sunglasses. I sat in the top tier, and a lot of times I slept through church because I was working night shift patrol at that time. And had a pastor named Steve Regal. We were going to a church called Grace Fellowship in Houston at that time. And Steve Regal, with a lot of courage, was given a message on sin. And he said, there's a lot of you out there. I'll never forget his words, because it changed my life that day. He said, there's a lot of you out there who are sitting in the chair, and the Bible, and you know that if one word of the Bible is true, all words are true. And you know that the Bible says the wages of sin are death. But you're sitting here, so you're thinking, well, I must have just made it under the wire. And when he said that, I kind of sat up in my chair and pulled my sunglasses up to the top of my head, because I was like, I think this guy's talking to me. And he said, I want to tell you, if one word is true, all words are true. He said, when you sin, something died. He said, it may be a relationship that you'll never realize, maybe a business that you'll never get a hold of. It may be financing, in your life that you'll never see because you killed it. He said, something died when you sinned, and because the wages of sin are death. And I was sat there and thought of all the things in my life that I had murdered, that I'll never be able to see. I'll never be able to know what the plan for those things were because of my sin in my life. And I sat there and I prayed, and I asked God to forgive me, and I made a pledge to God that every day, knowing that I drag this Adam suit around, that I'm gonna fail, that every day I'm gonna try to do better than I did the day before, and I'm gonna be a better man and a better father and a better husband and a better Christian every day. And that's the path I've been trying to walk, for about the last 15 years.
Wow. What, on a practical level, having made that decision, how did that change your life, or how did that change maybe your process of decision making, or your perspective on what was happening around you?
I think the biggest change, the first change that everybody noticed, was to clean my mouth up. The first thing, I'd come out of the Marine Corps with a pretty healthy use of the F word, and like most Marines, and I had no problem using it, because I felt like it was just part of the English language, and had learned and was proud of the fact that I spoke Marine lingo.
Right.
And the first thing that it did, immediately, was it changed the way that I spoke. And I actually had people tell me, we didn't know you were so smart. We didn't know that you were intelligent. And I had those people fooled because of my mouth. And that was amazing, just that one thing. But then it came to lying. I needed to pull that out of my life, because that's a problem. All these things, God, we serve a God that sees black and white. He sees good and he sees evil. And when you're sinning, you're on the evil side. And God doesn't care particularly what you're doing. I don't think, this is my opinion, but I don't think God cares, if you're cheating on your taxes or if you're lying. I think he sees, there is no white lie. There is no, well, I just sinned a little bit. I think God sees sin, and he sees righteousness. And as far as I'm concerned, anything that would, steal glory from my God, or bring dishonor on my God, that's a sin. So I try to stay away from that. And that's really what I tried to do. I just decided I was going to change. And, all of a sudden I have my wife telling me, she's telling me, you're growing up, and you're becoming a good man. And hear my mom say, I'm proud of you. And, people around me, I didn't know that you were such a good person. And, you start hearing all these comments, and I'm like, this is me, this is who I am. But, I'd camouflage that person with sin.
Yeah.
And once we were able to start stripping that sin away, it's kind of like a muddy Jeep, a really nice Jeep, but it's all muddy, just looks like a piece of crap. But you strip that mud off of it, and all of a sudden somebody's like, oh God, this is it's an $80,000 Jeep, and that's really how it started working. And now it's just a common, it's just a campaign rather of discipline for me, of every day, of how can I be more disciplined? How can I, keep my ear closer to the rail to hear the will of God, which is where I want to be. I had to make a decision that kid that wanted to have fun and then come back to God. I mean, if God in the Bible, back to that, if one word is true, all words are true. That God that knows every hair on your head, that knew you in the womb before you were born,
Yeah.
that's the God that's making the plan for your life. How could that ever be not what people are calling now, your best life? That is your best life, is that life. So, I guess that's it kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's awesome. The impact that faith has on our lives is incredible. And man, that picture, that sin kills, that sin is death and brings death. I mean, we think about that in a gospel sense. It's the death, the separation from God. But in a practical sense, what are we killing? Those relationships and all of those things, really because selfishly we want to do what we want to do instead of aligning to what God wants. It changes everything. That's incredible. So with all of that in mind, you decided at some point you wanted to start a restaurant. And I think what I know of the restaurant, it reflects really well what you just talked about, the legacy, the people that were involved in your life, the things that you experienced, even faith and how you view yourself in light of God and the Bible. Talk to us about the restaurant, what it is, where it came from, what you hope to accomplish, and what you are accomplishing through it.
Oh, I still own, I come from the defense space. After I got out of law enforcement, obviously, went back into contracting. And that was really a decision to have my family live in a manner that I felt like they deserved to live, but law enforcement wasn't going to pay for. And then when I came back, I think my first contracting business, I started with a retired Navy SEAL that I had worked with. And, and I kind of looked at him, and I think kind of how a lot of businesses get started. I looked at him and I said, I think we can do this as well or better than these idiots we're working for. And he was like, yeah, I think we can. And we had started. I worked for a British outfit named Armor Group, which brought me back into the States for Katrina. So, we had come back together, and then we had worked Katrina together. He was working on the FEMA side, and I was working. I actually started in there with a protection detail with the MTV News crew. Wow. And then when they took off, we protected the mayor's office and a construction company called Shaw Brothers Construction, which is out of Baton Rouge. And so while we're working, we started putting a plan together. We're going to start this contracting company, and we started that. I ran that and sold it in 2017. My portion of it. I had my partner, the Navy SEAL. His name is Miguel Yanes. He had left the company earlier than that, and a finance guy had stepped in, and it got to the point where I just didn't. Me and the guy that was there, we saw things a little differently, and it was picking up. It was kind of gaining velocity, and I told him, I said, let's try to do something before we can't do anything. And it was better for the employees that he kept the business and ran it because of some products that we had in the product stream, and I knew I wanted to do something different, so I stepped away, and I took basically all the hardware side, the guns. The gun importing, the gun production, that stuff with me, the hardware. And so started a new company called WarWorks. And then, I think God had seeded the idea of this restaurant years before I started it. And kind of the catalyst that caused me to move that way was I have a freshman in high school this year. I have 4 daughters. So my daughter that's a freshman, she was an 8th grader, and she had asked me, Dad, will you help me put my courses together? And so we sit down and we're putting our courses together, and, all the way to her senior year. And I'm looking, and there's no government classes. There's no civics classes. And I'm like, so where are they? So I end up calling her counselor, and her counselor says, oh, we don't give those classes anymore.
Wow.
And I'm like, well, how's a young adult supposed to care if people want to change the Constitution if they've never read it before? They don't have any kind of concept of what the document stands for.
Right.
I'm like, and that kind of spearheaded the idea of putting together a facility that, 1, honors veterans and their families every day, and 2, makes incredible food. And then, probably the third thing is to educate people and pass that generational knowledge from veterans down to other people that don't have those experiences. And, I tell people all the time, I'm like, if you want to see what it costs to be an American, all you got to do is walk in the restaurant and look at the wall for about 5 foot, and you're going to figure it out, because, this restaurant is covered. We opened the restaurant with massive, whiteboards that you would see in any office, the kind of a whiteboard that you would write with a marker on. And we have 48 whiteboards in the building. And that was so veterans and their families could bring copies of pictures of them and put them on the board when we designed this building, we put the windows up high in the building so that we could put those boards up and put other, veteran related stuff on the walls. And, we've been open for just about 7 months, and those boards are almost full of our local veterans and then families of veterans from, we've got pictures from World War II forward. And actually we've got one veteran that, and him, our mutual friend Bruce, who brought in a picture of his grandfather from World War I, an Australian
Wow.
Army officer from World War I. And so that's the oldest picture we have up. But, this restaurant was built to one, just to bring goodness to the community, and then to basically explain patriotism and to explain the cost and the price of not only freedom but the American dream. And when you say it follows along with my values, we bought a building and we demoed the building. We kept 3 brick walls and the concrete slab, and then we put a larger structure inside those brick walls and tied everything back together. And so there's 27 columns, steel columns in this building. All of them have a pier that goes 12 foot 6 inches deep. And in the middle column, the day that we poured the concrete, I had 7 men come over here with me, one being my pastor, retired Marine Corps colonel. All of them were veterans, by the way. We came and we held hands around that center column, the pier that they had driven into the ground. We invited the concrete crew who came over there. Most of them were Hispanic and some of them didn't even speak English. And they came over. We invited them. We said we told them we're going to say a prayer. We prayed around that. We all put an inscription in a Bible, and then I said in traditional Marine Corps fashion, I said from the oldest veteran, which was an Army veteran from Vietnam, and he's in his early 80s now, and he was here. He was an intelligence officer, and to the youngest, who was the son of the concrete foreman. He'd had his son on the job. It was the summertime. Son's name was Jose, 14 years old. I told him, I said, get down in the pit. And I said, Mr. Dennis is going to hand you this Bible and you're going to put it down in the hole. And of course, Mr. Dennis handed it to him. And he looked at me again like, he said, you sure? And I said, put it down in there. And he put it down and we poured concrete on top of that. So this building, the foundation, the center of this building, 12 foot 6 inches deep, God's word is planted underneath this building. This building is built on the word of God, not just figuratively, but literally. Yeah. And me and my brother, we framed this building, with wood framing, because in Conroe, they still give you a choice. You can use metal studs or wood. I like wood because it's more substantial. And so we framed this whole building out, and we invited everybody who wanted to come and put scriptures on the studs before we put the sheetrock up. So while we were framing, there's thousands of scriptures on the studs of this building underneath the sheetrock. So, people come in here and they tell me, I feel comfortable, I feel at home, I feel safe. And that's no surprise to me. I tell them, I said, because this is our Father's house, and you're supposed to feel that way at your Father's house.
That's awesome, man. What a great story. Okay, first I'll ask this question first. Why is it important that Americans are reminded of veterans and what veterans have done? And I can see some of these pictures even behind you. And why is that important? Why does that matter?
There's a quote that says, those who don't remember history are doomed to repeat it. And, we've learned a lot through war fighting. I don't have to tell you, you're a battlefield commander. You know that, during wartime, we not only learn about war, but we learn more about medicine. We learn about physics. We learn so much through warfare. Unfortunately, it's a fact of war that we learn as well, because there's a necessity to learn. You have to learn. Because it keeps people alive, keeps them safe, puts them back together after they've been harmed, all those things. And so, why is it important to remember? First of all, the most important reason is because it's important to their families. It's important to the American story, and that American story is one family at a time. Just like Mighty Oak says it, I say it, it's one veteran at a time. If we can save just one at a time, then we can get all of them if we just get one at a time, but we've got to start. And, so those stories, we talk about them one at a time. I don't ever let anybody just put a picture up in this building. They've got to talk to either me or one of the managers, because we take a photo of them with the photo. Yeah. We talk to them and get their stories, the details of the story. because every one of these stories is important, and every one of the stories is now in the fabric of the makeup of this restaurant, of this endeavor that we have. It's not a restaurant, it's an endeavor, and each one of those stories is the fabric. And so, just as we Marines say, the Marine Corps is the golden thread that holds our morally tattered society together. That morally tattered society is built one story at a time. So those veteran stories bring strength, and they bring belief. And you don't hear, there's not very many atheists in a foxhole, they say. And so most of those stories encompass a God aspect that you bring. And I think that if enough of those stories are told, and if enough of that strength can be brought from the past, maybe we can push that strength forward and do what we need to do, which is turn this country's face back to God and build a place where our children can be safe.
That's great. What are, over the last 7 months, what are some of your favorite stories, things that have happened either in the restaurant? You're telling me earlier about some of the people that have come into the restaurant. What are some of the things you look at and go, this is the reason, this is why we did this?
Well, I'll start it by telling you first that we hired the staff 2 weeks before we opened. And so I took 1 day from each week so I could counsel them and, basically train them up, because I didn't want them getting blindsided by what was going to happen here. And I knew what was going to happen. So, I tell them, hey, I don't expect you're not therapists, you're not psychiatrists, you're not counselors. I said, but what you will do on behalf of this endeavor, on behalf of my family, is when people come and they're looking for something, or they miss something, or they're reminiscing, I said, you'll tell them that we're so honored that they would spend any part of this day with us.
That's great.
And and I said, one thing that we can do, what we can do better than anybody else is customer service. So I said, we'll have the best customer service anybody's ever seen, and part of that is how can we make today better for you? How can we make it the best experience? And so I counseled them so that they wouldn't be blindsided. And then, the first Saturday we're open, of course, I'm getting blindsided left and right by people. Everything I warned them of, I'm walking into it. I remember I was in the restaurant not too far from where I'm sitting now, and I was talking to a table, and a young lady, in her mid-50s, came walking up, and she was clutching something in her arms, and she said, she waited politely until I got done talking to people at the table. I turned around and said, how can I help you? And she said, well, someone told me that if I brought something military related, that you would put it up, you would display it in this restaurant. Is that true? And I said, of course it is. I said, what do you have there? And she hands it to me. And of course, me not ever holding it before, I didn't know what it was until I opened it, and I saw that it, first thing I see is her son's name, Brandon, and it was a Gold Star Mother's flag. And whew, man, I just kind of stood there on the floor, and I told her, I said, ma'am, if you don't like any of these walls, I said, we'll add on to this building for this flag. I said, let's walk around. And we walked around, and she looked at the walls, and we have a VIP room. We call it the Talk, because it's got a big GP tent hanging off the wall, and it's like you're walking into a command tent. And she liked that space. She felt comfortable in there, and she said, I'd like it in here. And I said, well, don't go anywhere. I said, I'm going to get a couple boys, and we're going to hang this flag right now. And so we hung it. She got very emotional, and she had to leave. And then a couple of days later, she came back, and she brought us two beautiful, large shadow boxes, basically with the story of her son. Had his birth certificate in there, had the band that was around his ankle when he came out of the hospital, all the way down to the letter she received from President Bush after he was killed in Iraq. And, we've been open for 7 months, and she's been in here 3 times. And she goes in there and she takes those down and she changes out the pictures, and it's on her own accord. That's her part of this restaurant. That's her piece of this fabric, and she she handles that stuff. And I tell you what, God will use that that situation, in God's infinite wisdom. He'll find ways to help us through. Her name's Teresa, Miss Teresa. And one day we were having a particularly hard day with the staff. And we had some of the younger girls fighting with the older girls, on the wait staff, and my floor manager had them outside, and 2 or 3 times, and finally he comes over. He said, "I need you involved in this because it's costing, it's bringing down the quality of our service." And so he gets me involved. So I go out, and he's got them stand outside in the shade. And of course, in Marine Corps fashion, I go out there. This is July, so I go out and I said, "No," I said, "Oh, you get out in the sun." I said, "You got me out here. We're talking, so we can all sweat together." So we stepped out there. and they're arguing with each other, and we get them to calm down, but we really didn't fix the problem. You know, it's hard to fix just kind of bickering. You know, they were bickering each other, and you really can't fix that. And we didn't fix it. We came in, they're still shooting, looks at each other, and then Miss Teresa walks in for lunch with a friend of hers. She'd come from work, and so I called all the girls over, and I said, y'all see that lady over there? And they all, they looked at her, and I said, that's her son's flag in the private dining room. And of course, all of them have walked past that flag, have seen that flag. And I said, you guys go in there and you look at that flag. I said, and you go over there and you tell Miss Teresa, you thank her for the sacrifice our family's made, and give her a hug. And, on their own accord, one at a time, all of them went over. And of course, a couple of them were crying and gave her a hug. I'll tell you what, we sure didn't have any bickering for the rest of the day. God found a way to use that experience to bring, clarity and just the concept of what's really important and what's not important, and in that moment where she walked in, it changed the tide of our battle here today, of that day. It changed the fight, and that team came back together, and we had a good day. So, and that's God, that's God does those things. And we had a lady that came up one time. It was a Sunday, and she walked in, and she didn't wait for me to stop talking to who I was talking to. She just walked up and she said, I need you out in the parking lot. And I turned around and I said, well, what do you want with me out in the parking lot?
Right.
And she said, well, I just need you out there. I said, well, most of the time when I've ever been invited to the parking lot, it's not ended up good for somebody. I said, so what's the deal? And she goes, I need to show you something. Will you come out to the parking lot? I said, yes, ma'am. So I go walking behind her, and as we step outside, her husband's out there. He's got a laminated piece of paper that he hands me, and in the laminated piece of paper is a note, a handwritten note, and they're standing behind a 90s model Chevy pickup, extended cab pickup. And if you're bringing somebody out to the parking lot to see a truck, it probably wouldn't be this truck. It was hand crank windows. It wasn't particularly we're not talking about the high country edition or anything.
Right.
And but they told me, they said this truck belonged to our son, and he bought it in high school. It was his baby, and then he joined the Army right out of high school, and he was killed in Iraq. He didn't make it home, and this was the note. This is the list of the things he wanted done, and they wanted me just to walk around that truck and see that they had finished that list for him, and like a certification or something like. And they showed me these are the rims he wanted, and this was the rack in the back of the truck that he wanted to hold the tire, and this is that. And the dad goes, yeah, we had to buy another tire. It took 5 tires. And they just wanted to show that they completed that job. So, and that was my part, was to be out there and to be that guy that they told that to show that truck to. And I told him, I said, what an incredible thing that you've done. What an incredible legacy, you've put together. And they said that his sister had just had a baby, and it was a boy. He was 1 year old, and they said they were going to keep the truck in driving condition until he could drive, and they were going to offer the truck to him. And then, if he didn't want it, they said, we don't know what we'll do with it, but we're going to keep it until he's able to drive. And I told him, I said, what an incredible plan, and what an incredible thing to do for someone that you love, that paid so much for us.
Yeah.
And told him, I said, I'm just blown away that you would take time out of your Sunday to bring this up here to the parking lot of the restaurant. And it's just incredible. We have we have people that come in for all different types of purposes. We have I was walking by a young lady one day, and she was looking around, and I saw her smiling and looking around, and I stopped, and I tried to say thank you for your service to every veteran that comes in the door. And I asked her, I said, did you serve? And she said, well, kinda. And I said, well, what do you mean kinda? I said, there's no kinda or not, or you either served or you didn't serve. I said, I'm asking because I want to say thank you for your service. And she said, well, I joined the Navy, and but I got pneumonia in boot camp, and so they medically separated me, so I wasn't able to go further. She goes, but I'm a nurse now, and she works at a local hospital in the ER at the hospital here in the Woodlands, and she goes, so that's what I do now. And I said, well, first of all, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. I said, you don't know me, you don't have to if you don't want. I said, but what I'm going to ask you, I said, is that that, if someone asks you if you served, that you just say yes. I said, because I said, did you mean was it your plan to go into boot camp and then to leave with pneumonia? And she goes, no. And I said, well, I want to show you. And I sitting right behind her, in that God way, was the placard and a flag and the fruit salad from a man that had served 46 years in the Navy. And I said, if you look at his plaque back here and all of his awards and his medals and his ribbons, I said, and you look at his rank, I said, I didn't serve either. I said, I'm not much of a veteran either, because 7 years is nothing compared to 40 something years, almost 40 years here. I said, so I guess by your standard, I'm not much of a veteran either. And she kind of looked at me and she smiled real big, and she cried a little bit, and she said, thank you so much. And I said, no, I said, thank you. I said, and thank you for your continued service of being a healthcare worker and being out there on the front line for us and for helping protect our families and our friends. I said, thank you so much. And so it's just, it's a huge spectrum of what happens here. We've been able to put a couple of guys through your program from here in the restaurant. Guys came in here and, we saw a look in their eye, or when their family members called us and said, hey, they're doing this or that. And we've been able to call you guys and get them put into Mighty Oaks, and with great effect. Those guys come back, and, we've been able to get in the middle of, about 3 families and get a counselor from one of the local counseling groups or from the churches to come in and help families and keep families together. I mean, it's just God's work, man. It's incredible.
It's incredible. Man, so many wonderful stories and others that you mentioned earlier before we even started, but people don't want to be forgotten, do they? And particularly when you're talking about your kids, I think, I can't imagine being a Gold Star parent, but I feel like one of the things you would be concerned about is people just don't know, people have forgotten, people will forget, and you've given those folks a platform to be remembered and to really feel like they've contributed. Man, just how important that is. So important.
It's incredibly important. Like I said, that those stories are the fabric of who we are today. And, we say that in the Marine Corps, that saying, we stand on their shoulders.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. I mean, these men and women that you see on these walls, especially the older pictures, we stand on their shoulders. They won that pride for us. They won that freedom for us long before we had anything to do with it. And that story is so valuable. Each one of these stories is so valuable. And we have a shop on the other side of the restaurant. And so it's a restaurant, and then it's a shop called League of the Extraordinary on the other side. And in the very front of the shop, the first thing there is a lending library, which we've got your book in, consequently, and we've got Chad's book. And they get checked out a lot, man. So you can be proud. And I recommend it a lot. Your book is tremendous, by the way, and a very, very enjoyable read, man. And a lot of help in that book, man. And I tell you what, just the opening of the book where you're staring down a cannon and having to charge that cannon, man, and make the right decision. Know that if you make the wrong decision, people are turning it into strawberry jam. I mean, the book starts out incredible and finishes nice. But yeah, we've got a lending library, and what we do is we'll have guys from. In just 7 months, we've already had 3 reports where people came in and they wanted to do a report on the Korean War. And I said, all right. I said, give me your number, and I'll have 2 Korean War veterans, meet them over there on a Tuesday morning. And, I'll give the Korean War veterans coffee so that they stay, calm. And I'll tell them, you want to do a report on the Frozen Chosen, we'll have 2 Korean War Marines that sit over there and tell you exactly what it looked like from the ground, one from the south and one from the north. And we've done that now, 3 times with kids from either Montgomery High School or Conroe High School that wanted to do reports on different veteran-related situations. Yeah. We just had a dad come in yesterday, take pictures of some of the older Colts in the cases, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "My son's doing a report on Colt." He said, "You wouldn't believe it. He didn't pick the topic; it was given to him." And he's not really a gun guy, so I said, well, hey, I went over to the lending library, and we have a book on the history of Colt. So I pulled that book out, and I said, here, I said, check this book out and take it home. He's like, well, how long I said, hey, it's a lending library. I said, it's the honor system. I said, we got a car with your name on. I said, bring it back when you're done with it, And so, that's that transfer, that generational knowledge I'm talking about, because we're losing like, 11 or 12 World War II veterans a day now. We're losing those guys, and that number is not a large number that we have left. And anytime we can honor those guys, it's an incredible thing. I'll tell you a quick story on that. We had some guys that came in, and they're ministers, chaplains for a hospice situation, and they had an old World War II Marine that was on hospice, and he was punching out any day. He had a couple of weeks to live, and they were trying to get him this, trying to get him that. What can we get you? Your favorite ice cream? And finally, he said, "You know what I want?" He said, "I want to hear from my brothers," he said. And so they brought up a picture, an 8x10 of the flag raising on Iwo Jima. And for 2 days, we did nothing but every Marine that came in, we had them leave their signature on the picture. So everybody with a marker signed it. By the time they came back 2 days later to take it with them to go visit him, and you couldn't even barely see the picture. There were so many signatures, and USMC, 63 to 65, USMC, 87 to 89. And the names on there, and they took it to him. They took a picture with him, and man, that smile, man, that's priceless. That's what he asked for, and in 2 days we did it for him. We got it for him. So last Veterans Day, a lady that runs a hospice here in Conroe contacted us and said she had 3 veterans that were on hospice that were, within a month of passing, and she didn't know what to do, because of COVID. She didn't know what to do for them. And I said, well, we know what to do. And we made special meals for them, man, from here. And we had them delivered to them, special dessert, had the staff sign some cards for them. And, those guys, she came back and she was crying. She said, they said they hadn't felt like veterans. One of the guys said, I haven't felt like a veteran in 30 years. He goes, and I did today.
Wow.
I felt like a veteran. So, just God's blessing people through this place. And like you said, restaurant is a loose term for us, man, because it's more of a mission here. We have a mission. And
you guys have as I understand, a relationship with the Hearts Museum in Huntsville.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What an incredible. By the way, one of the most underrated museums probably in the country. They are absolutely incredible in Huntsville, but you've gotten some stuff there from them as well.
Well, we have a kind of a mutual aid program, and they let us display some things from their museum as well. So everything that you see in the restaurant is genuine. There's no repro stuff on the walls. I mean, everything has a real story connected to it, which makes it a more genuine experience in the restaurant. But yeah, those people are great up there. Miss Tara, the director of the museum, is just golden. And then if anybody stops in, I can recommend your book, which is also in the pro shop up there. So
in the pro shop, they said we needed free copies of books. I said, all right, I'll give you a book.
They've got you and Chaz's book up there, in the gift shop up there at the museum.
Well, I think the price was right. We just donated them, so that worked out pretty well.
And to tell you the truth, that's where the books that are in our library. That's where they came from. Tara brought them down for us, and we put them in the library. So, and I want to say, I think the book that I got it from the gala, from the Mighty Oaks Gala, from you. I think I bought it, and then I put my copy into the library here after I read it. So
awesome, man. Well, very cool, Chris. People that want to visit, want to support, want to know more about you guys, where should they go for that kind of information?
Man, we got a website, which is www.honorcafe.us, and then we got our Facebook site, which is just Honor Cafe, and the Facebook site is crazy how much is captured by people with cell phones.
Yeah.
And this on the Marine Corps birthday here, this last Marine Corps birthday, I came in here and I walked in from working out. I work out in the morning, so I walked in and there were already a couple of Marines eating breakfast in here. One's a retired gunnery sergeant. The other one was a corporal that got out. Both of them actually had served together in an LEV unit. And so there and there, I saw them. I came walking in. I dropped my gym bag, slapping it on the back. Semper Fi, and I had walked past. When I walked past a couple of tables away from them, there was a guy in his 20s, about a 3-year-old boy sitting there, very solemn. And then while I was talking to them, a young girl in her mid-20s came walking by, and she was crying when she walked by. So I'm kind of watching because I didn't know if they were fighting or something. And she sits down, and her husband said something, or the guy said something, grabbed her hand. She looked over at me, and she walked straight, just steamed right to me. And I was like, can I help you? And she said, I need a Marine Corps flag. And I said, I think that I think we're out of flags in the shop, and we had sold out of all the flags. And we were waiting to be resupplied. And I told her, I said, and she really got emotional. She really got upset, started crying. And she said, I need a Marine Corps flag. And I said, well, you can buy one off Amazon. I said, you'll have it in a couple of days. I said, that might be the best option for you. And she goes, no. She goes, you don't understand. I need a flag today. And she's just sobbing. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. Why do you need a flag? And she said, we're burying my father this afternoon. He's a Marine, and I promised him that I would bury him with the Marine Corps flag, and I don't have she'd failed to get a flag. And I said, in that case, and you can probably see behind me here, we have all the flags of the services up on the wall. I said, in that case, I said, we got a Marine Corps flag. And of course, the one we had up is different than the one we have up now. It was I don't know how this happened, but the Marine Corps flag was much more expensive and much nicer than the other armed forces.
How did that happen?
I don't know. Probably the same reason that the whiteboard wall for the Marines is larger also than the other services. It worked out that way.
Right.
I don't know the math of it because I'm not that good at math,
sure.
But it worked out that way.
Strange.
But, so I turned around to those two Marines and I said, "You guys want to help me?" And when I turned around to ask them, they were already standing. So we came up, we put up a ladder, we took down our flag. We folded it. Me and the corporal folded it. We handed it to the gunny. He walked over. He presented it to the daughter of the fallen Marine, and he said, "I know you're upset." He goes, "But what an honor to be married for a Marine to be buried on the Marine Corps birthday." He said, "What an incredible honor." He goes, "I hope that when I get there, I could be so lucky." And of course, he gave her a hug. She hugged him. I told her, I said, we have a saying in the Marine Corps that if one Marine lives, all Marines live. I said, so your father lives with us. He lives as long as there's a Marine Corps. And she hugged me. And we were walking them out, and three young Marines were coming in to eat breakfast, and they're actually wearing PT gear, so green shirts and green silkies, and they're come walking in, and they walk past us, and we're shaking hands, Semper Fi, and we're getting the family out the front door. Well, apparently they had come and sit down. We have 5 tables across the front of where you see behind me the flags, and so we've got tables that have on the tables the Armed Force logos as well. So of course they came and sat down at the Marine Corps flag. The Marine Corps and the Navy tables sit together. They're the only ones connected. So they sat down and sat on the Marine Corps, and I guess they were giving Grant, our floor manager, giving him a hard time because the Marine Corps flag wasn't up, and they were pitching up. They're like, "Where's it's the Marine Corps birthday. Where's the flag?" And Grant told him the story. So as I was walking back in from walking the family out, one of them just sprints out in the parking lot like the building was on fire. Well, unbeknownst to me, they were going to eat breakfast and they were going on a Marine Corps run for the Marine Corps birthday. He comes charging back into the building with a guide on with a Marine Corps flag on it. And he runs up to me. He's like, cut it loose. Wow. Put our flag up. So I cut it loose and I put their flag up. So literally that other flag was probably down 8 minutes. And so, they eat breakfast, they leave. Well, for lunch, a Vietnam era Marine comes in. And of course he looks up and, he tells Grant, "Where's the nice Marine Corps flag? Why is that one up there?" And Grant tells him the story, and he says, "Okay." And so he gets finished eating lunch, and he leaves, and he comes back 30 minutes later, and he's got this flag that we have hanging now, which is, it's all embroidered. The EGA is embroidered on it, so it's a much nicer flag. But he brought that one. So, 245-year anniversary of the Marine Corps this year. We flew 3 Marine flags in this restaurant in one day, man. And that's the kind of thing we're talking about, man.
That's awesome. Man, that's incredible. Chris Sadler of the Honor Cafe. If you're in Conroe, go by. If you're not, get on the Facebook page, support, send it out, and let people know it's there. Thanks, Chris. Really, really appreciate it, man. It's awesome.
What an honor to be with you here, and thank you very much for letting me run my jib. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. For those of you that are watching or listening, thank you for doing it. Thank you for joining us. Again, take some time, jump over to YouTube, subscribe, hit the notification bell so that you are able to get more information as it comes on, and we're constantly putting stuff out there, and I would love to share that with you. And other than that, hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time.